This is Ramak Shinobi and today I'm going to narrate second and final part of What If Naruto Awakens Gravity Manipulation during Land of Wave arc. If you enjoy this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Not wasting no time. Let's start the story.
Ibiki picked up the test papers and walked through the exam room. He noticed writing on the back of Naruto's when he got there. He saw numerous symbols that most people wouldn't recognize, but when he saw the one at the bottom, he knew what it was. The two sides that ran parallel to the vertical sides of the paper were longer than the others, giving it the appearance of a hexagonal crystal. Above the crystal, lines appeared to form a wing, with one line appearing to be partially disconnected. Ibiki recognized the symbol and thought, the Clava tribal symbol. Ibiki was one of the few ninja who was proficient in the ancient language, but few people were aware that he knew how to write in the language of the four tribes. The note above the symbol caught his attention. It said, Ibiki, you might be a traitor in the Chunin exams. Yakushi Kabuto is his name. He appears to know a lot of classified information about me. You understand what I mean. Inform the Hokage right away. Finish up here. I've got something I need to do. He turned to one of the Chunin who was assisting him in gathering up the exams, and when he saw the Chunin nod, he walked out of the room to locate the Hokage. Following the purple-haired woman as she guided them and the other test takers to the next phase of the examination, Naruto and Hinata walked side by side. The woman turned around after stopping in front of a massive forest with trees that were 80 feet tall and surrounded by a substantial fence. Welcome to Training Ground 44, or as it's affectionately called, the Forest of Death, said Anko. Naruto arched an eyebrow at the name, but several genin shuddered. Really? He sensed the animals in the forest and thought, makes sense. But as he narrowed in on something that didn't seem to belong there, his eyes widened. There was something big in there. Something that ought to be absent. What is that? Lael and Amidate Lion exchanged glances in Naruto's mind. You don't think? Amidate Lion began. I hope not, said Lael, trembling a little. It's difficult to kill those things. What is it? Naruto asked in his mind. As she hurled a kunai at Naruto, Anko yelled, Oi, brat, you scared? As it went by, Naruto ducked beneath it, just missing his hair, but a kunai was at his throat. He raised an eyebrow at the kunai and then turned to face Anko, who was holding it. That's not going to scare me, he said, pointing to the woods, nor are your tactics. Anko said, hey, whatever, brat. Tough guys like you are usually the first to go, before taking the kunai off Naruto's throat and turning to return to her previous position. Anyway, there are a few things you need to know about this part of the exam. First is that we need to have you sign a release form before you take it. You don't sign, you don't participate. Why is that? Inquired a random genin. A Chunin showed up and gave her a stack of forms. Because we need your consent, so Konoha isn't held accountable if you die during the test. And trust me, there will be deaths, Anko explained. Before giving the stack to Naruto, who took 3 for his team and gave the remaining ones to Hinata, she pointed to a tent close to the fence and said, you will sign these forms and turn them in at that tent over there. She produced a scroll and opened it to reveal a simple map of the region. Now, next are the rules and guidelines. It's a no-holds barred survival test. Training Ground 44 is bordered by a circular perimeter with 44 gates equally distanced from each other. There are forests and a river, and in the center of the training ground is a tower, which is about 10 kilometers from each gate. Within the confines of this area, you will undergo a survival test, during which you can use anything at your disposal. The scroll was rolled up. It's a kind of fight.to. The death version of capture the flag, or in this case, the scroll. As Anko put away her scroll and took out 2 more, one with a black border and the other with a white one, a genin asked, scroll? Exactly, said Anko. There is an earth scroll and a heaven scroll. Your objective is to obtain both and head to the tower in the given time limit of 5 days. 5 days? Inquired Choji, but what do we do for food? That's your problem, according to Anko. A loud roar erupted from the forest, and the genin and Anko shielded their ears to preserve their hearing. The forest has plenty of food. Of course, it also has giant tigers, blood-sucking leeches, and the occasional goblin or bomb monster. When everyone's hearing was over, Shikamaru exclaimed, what the hell was that? That was too loud and different to be a tiger? Anko frowned and looked back at the forest. I don't know, but I would advise all of you to be careful, she said. Now, if you find out what it is, report to the tower, even if you don't have both scrolls, so that it can be dealt with. Here are the rules. Any 3-man team that does not have both scrolls when they report to the tower is disqualified. So is any team that has 1 or more members incapacitated or dead. Under no circumstances is a team allowed to leave once the test has begun. And finally, no team is to look at their scroll's contents until you're inside the tower. Why is that? Inquired Sakura. Anko answered, to put it this way. You don't want to. No. Now then, you have half an hour to fill out your forms. As he completed the last of his paperwork for the time being, anyway the Hokage let out a deep sigh and sagged slightly in his chair. As he considered the upcoming Chunin exams, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was going to go wrong. A knock on his office door caused him to straighten and shake his head. He yelled, "Enter," and saw a tall man in his early 20s come in. His blue eyes were hidden behind oval-shaped glasses, and his light brown hair was covered by an archaeology hat. He was dressed in dark brown pants, boots, and a light brown jacket with lots of pockets. From Kakashi and Kurenai's report from the mission to the ruins, he identified him as Taiki Nakashima. A few days prior, the elderly Hokage had accepted the man's request to meet with him at his place. Hiruzen said, "Hello there, Professor Nakashima," and gestured for him to take a seat. "What is it you wanted to discuss?" Taiki's response alarmed Hiruzen. "Lord Hokage, I have come here on behalf of the Elder Council from my home country to discuss an urgent matter with you," he said. "I see. If I may ask, what is your home country, and what is it you wish to discuss?" Hiruzen said, reserving his response. Taiki paused for a moment. The council had instructed him to stick to their stance on the subject and not reveal himself unless absolutely required. He was quickly thinking. My country is well known, but also believed to have faded. As for what I wish to discuss, it entails to one of your shinobi. Looking at the man before him, Hiruzen squinted. I will need the exact name of your country and the name of the shinobi in question. Do not try to sugarcoat your words. Following another moment of hesitation, Taiki said, "If you activate the privacy seals in this room, I will tell you." After the Hokage agreed and activated the seals, he removed his hat, exposing the plant. Like bud his hair had taken, and stated, "My real name is Del D. Nakashima of the Lil T Kingdom, and the matter I have been sent to discuss concerns the rightful heir to the kingdom's throne, Naruto Uzumaki Sol Alphateria." Everyone had wandered off a short distance to sign their forms after the 30-minute break. As they completed their forms, Teams 7 and 8 had located a tree to sit beneath. To Naruto's dismay and the laughter of the others, Hinata had moved after completing her form and was sitting in his lap with the back of her head resting on his chest. Naruto abruptly turned away from Team 8 and his teammates and sneezed, trembling a little. That was unexpected. I must be mentioned by someone. After everyone had signed their forms, Sakura read hers carefully and asked, "Are you okay, Naruto?" before signing hers. "I'm fine," said Naruto. "I don't know what made that roar, but I do know it's something that shouldn't be in there. Whatever it is, we should avoid it." Agreed? Everyone agreed and Naruto kept going. "Also, we should meet up and work together in there. That way, we'll finish faster." As Naruto and the girl blushed a little but did not deny it, Kiba smirked and said, "You sure you don't just want to spend more time with Hinata? But you're right, I guess. It would be easier." Just then, Anko's voice echoed through the room. "All teams are to report to the tent now. We will be starting soon." Hinata removed her head from her boyfriend's chest and sighed. "Wait, we should have a password when we meet up, just so we know that someone isn't trying to trick us," Naruto said as everyone got up and prepared to leave. Sasuke gave a nod. "How about we ask who Naruto's ancestors were, since we all know the answer?" Everyone nodded, with Naruto reluctantly following suit and making his way to the tent. Team 8 went in first and quickly left. After giving Naruto's team a nod, they went to the gate to which they had been assigned. After entering, Naruto's group transformed into a Chunin, who accepted them and handed them a scroll of heaven, which Naruto pocketed. "Your gate is number 8. Based on the grass-like symbol on their headbands, they passed a team from the hidden grass village as they left the tent and made their way to their gate. They put their hands to their ears when they heard a loud roar again, a little closer this time, after they had arrived at the gate. "Sounds like it's getting closer," Sasuke remarked after opening his ears again. "Yeah," Sakura uttered falteringly. Gulping. Seeing this, Sasuke put a hand on her shoulder to help her relax a little. "Don't worry. If it's something nasty, I can just spam shadow clones to keep it busy while we run," said Naruto. Sakura let out a sigh of relief before realizing something. "Hey Naruto. Why did you ask Kiba to get Kabuto's scent?" Naruto stiffened a little. "It's a long story. Maybe I'll tell you at the tower." Seeing that Naruto was unwilling to discuss it, Sakura said, "Okay." Anko suddenly materialized above them on the fence. As she finished, the gates swung open, and each team bounded into the forest, prepared to start the second exam. "Okay, One last piece of advice before we start, she said, pausing dramatically before shouting, just don't die. Upon sensing that someone was following them after a few hundred meters, Naruto said, hang on guys, I gotta take a leak. Without waiting for an answer, he proceeded to unzip his pants behind a tree. You know it's wrong to sneak up on a guy taking a leak, right? He asked before he did so. His hand shot out to a bush, and he withdrew, throwing out a man from the hidden mist village who was wearing a beige jumpsuit, a gas mask, goggles, and a shinobi headband. He caught the man by the neck. Did you really think one of us wouldn't notice you coming? With Naruto's hand on his throat, the nin said, you brat, as clearly as he could. Now then, Naruto said, drawing a kunai and putting it to the nin's throat, what scroll does your team have? An earth scroll, but you'll never get it, I don't have it. Naruto said, oh, before he knocked him unconscious. After releasing the nin's throat, he went through his possessions and discovered the earth scroll the nin had mentioned, along with kunai, shuriken, and a number of poisons. Did he really think I wouldn't be able to tell he was lying? As he pocketed the scroll, he thought, when someone is lying, their magical presence varies a little. Then he walked out from behind the tree, leaving the nin there. Sasuke said, hold it, first, who were your ancestors, Naruto? As he saw Naruto had returned. Naruto said, Lael and Althea Sol Alphataria, while displaying his Kekkei Genkei. Sorry, Naruto, I couldn't risk it being an imposter. Second, what took so long? Said Sasuke, letting his tension drop. Naruto pulled out the earth scroll and explained, I turned it on him and got this after a mist nin tried to jump me. Nice, Sakura grinned and said, now let's find the others and get to the tower. A shout of, Naruto.kun, interrupted their plans to enter the trees, and they turned to see Hinata, Kiba, Akamaru, and Shino enter the clearing. They appeared a little exhausted but happy. With his right hand reaching for a kunai, Sasuke uttered the words, wait, before you take another step, you have to tell me who Naruto's ancestors were. Hinata said, Lael and Althea, and Sasuke relaxed after looking at Naruto, who nodded. When Sasuke said, okay, you're the real deal, how are you three doing? Got both scrolls. We lead a team under some giant leeches, and we took the scroll before they ate it, said Kiba. You? Sakura remarked, we have both as well, while Hinata glomped Naruto. With a, glad to see you too, Hina, Naruto gave the hug back. He then glanced up at Kiba and Shino before rapidly going pale upon seeing what was staring at them all from the forest. Naruto. You okay? Kiba inquired, perplexed. Harshly, Naruto commanded, guys, don't make any sudden moves. Get into the forest behind me, if you want to live, holding Hinata as he began to retreat. Kiba looked back and said, huh? He followed Naruto's instructions and paled too. What is that thing? Kiba described the thing as being more than 20 feet tall. Its fur was deep purple, its tail whipping behind it, and its black claws were as long as its arms. The beige horns protruded from the sides of its head, curved in a circle behind it, and then shot out in front of it before flattening out. Before letting out an ear splitting roar, its vertical mouth, filled with extremely sharp canines, opened, and its beady red eyes locked onto its prey as they began to back slowly into the forest. It crouched, ready to attack. Naruto screamed, screw it. Run! And used shadow clones to distract it before grabbing Hinata and sprinting into the forest with the others at his heels. The creature lunged, but it was distracted when a shadow clone punched it in the stomach with gravity. It dispelled the clone before it could dodge with a swipe. A great ball of fire erupted from the creature's mouth, scattering the other clones as they charged. With a growl, it detected the sense of its prey and pursued them. As he received the memories from his clones, Naruto's head jerked slightly and he exclaimed, damn it, pick up the pace, guys, it's coming after us. As Akamaru whimpered in Kiba's jacket, Kiba yelled, what the hell is that thing? A behemoth lord is a species of behemoth monsters. Naruto retorted. These things don't give up easily when they try to catch their prey. They've been known to run for kilometers just to get it, and they're harder to kill than 20 king behemoths. We got to get to the tower. Sasuke shouted, how the hell can the village let one in here? After landing on a root, Naruto yelled, they didn't, someone else let it loose, and then launched himself away. Who? Naruto answered, I don't know, just before a roar could be heard. Kiba yelled, crap, and accelerated as the others followed suit. A man from the hidden grass village with a headband emerged from the ground in front of them as they were running to the tower and began signing for a jutsu, but the two leaf teams ran past him, Naruto yelling, move it. For a moment, the man wondered why his prey was so afraid despite the fact that he had done nothing, and he turned his head to watch them vanish into the trees. He turned his head back in front of him after hearing a loud roar and thought, "Oh, that must be why." He then bit his thumb and made a few hand gestures before yelling, summoning jutsu. A snake as large as the behemoth lord materialized in a big puff of smoke and wrapped itself around the monster. He commanded, "Deal with that nuisance, then dismiss yourself," and then he sank into the ground. As he leapt from branch to branch, Naruto questioned, "Hinata, how far to the tower?" With a gasp of horror, Hinata activated her Byakugan and said, "Maybe several kilometers." She looked around to make sure they weren't being followed. She began to tremble in terror, which caused Naruto to tighten his hold on her. N. Naruto.kun. Someone's chasing us. H's chakra network is far above Jonin levels, but it looks fragmented and bent at unnatural angles. Then Naruto called out to the others, "Guys, someone is chasing us. I don't know who, but he or she is far above Jonin levels." Naruto whispered, "Okay, deactivate your Byakugan." Kiba sniffed for something out of the ordinary and asked, "How did someone like that sneak into the exams?" Naruto exclaimed, "I don't know," before he and Hinata were launched into the air and sent flying after being struck by a wind jutsu. Sakura yelled, "Naruto! Hinata!" as the man they had been passing earlier emerged from the earth in front of them. Before attacking them, he remarked, "He, even if your friends survive, I'm afraid they won't be able to help you. Your fight is with me." In the hopes that Naruto and Hinata would be safe, Sasuke grunted as he stopped the unidentified man's kunai swing. But for the time being, he had to focus on staying alive. In order to protect Hinata from harm, Naruto grunted as he fell onto his back. Pain shot through his body, beginning at his back, as he heard a sharp crack. "Ah!" Hinata jerked up in alarm as Naruto hissed in agony. They heard a voice call that said, "Hey, are you two alright?" and turned to see Shikamaru, Ino, and Shoji running toward them with anxious expressions. I'm fine, but Naruto.kun is hurt. I heard a crack as we landed." Naruto moaned, "I think it's my spine, Hina, could you?" Hinata said, "Oh, sorry," as she dismounted Naruto. "Don't move until I can take a look at the damage, Naruto.kun." Hinata turned on her Byakugan and began assessing the damage to her fiancé's spine as Naruto attempted to stand up, but she pushed him back down. It's fractured at the 10th and 4th discs." Like Shikamaru and Ino, Shoji's voice and face were layered with worry as he asked, "Anything we can do to help?" Naruto asserted, "I can heal it on my own," Hinata said. Naruto.kun, that's not a good idea, as she removed one of her packs and looked inside. She asked absently, "Oh, where is it?" and then exclaimed, "Ah, here it is." She produced a green sphere that contained 2 crystals, causing Shikamaru to gasp in surprise. With wide eyes, Shikamaru inquired, "Where did you get that?" Hinata replied, "Long story," then directed her energy into it and said, "Kira." For a brief moment, Naruto was surrounded by a gentle green glow as a bulb appeared and vanished over him, and vines circled each of them before vanishing. Shikamaru, Ino, and Shoji were shocked when Naruto sat up and moaned. Naruto said, "NGH, thanks, Hina," and then he stood up and slightly stretched his back. Ino demanded, "What the? How are you able to do that?" Ino, "That was a magicite Hinata used," Shikamaru clarified. "If I remember correctly, Kira heals injuries." Naruto remarked, "You're right, it does, Hina, we go to get back to the others." But that man. Naruto's words, "Hina, it could be him," caused Hinata's eyes to widen and then harden. "Let's go," said Hinata. Ino inquired, "Where are you guys going?" After explaining, "Back to our teams. We were attacked by someone," Naruto leapt off, Hinata following closely behind. Shikamaru let out a sigh. "Well, I guess we should go help. It's troublesome, but there is strength in numbers." Shoji gave a nod. He turned to face Ino, but she wasn't there. "Yeah, I don't want my friends getting hurt, Ino?" he asked. Over her shoulder, Ino called out to Naruto and Hinata, "Come on, guys, hurry up, they need our help." After exchanging glances, the 2 boys sprinted after Ino. After his opponent gave him a vicious kick, Sasuke flew back and struck a tree, causing him to cough up some blood and slide down onto the branch. A few seconds later, Sakura narrowly avoided a blow from the odd man who was obviously playing with them, while Kiba, Akamaru, and Shino collided with the trees to his left and right. Kiba moaned, clutching his stomach, "Damn, this guy is strong, any ideas?" Sasuke remarked, "One, but Naruto isn't here," as Sakura collided with him. "Ah." Sakura said, "Sorry," while Sasuke rubbed his stomach. "Is this it? What a shame." I was expecting better from the mighty Uchiha. You really are weaker than your brother, Sasuke-kun, said the man. Who are you and how do you know my brother? Sasuke glared at the man after his head jerked up in surprise. Oh, we've met once. He did say something about you not even worth killing, said the individual. He made a few hand gestures and, to the genin's surprise, his neck extended as it pursued Sasuke. But we're wasting time. Since none of them was in a position to even try to stop him, Sasuke prepared for whatever was about to happen and saw a black shinobi sandal strike the odd man's face. The jacket the person who saved him was wearing was immediately recognizable to Sasuke. Sasuke grinned and said, "About time you got here, fool," to his teammate and friend. As the strange man's neck grew back to its normal length, Naruto landed in front of Sasuke. 4 additional allies, Hinata, Ino, Choji, and Shikamaru, then landed close to Naruto. Choji questioned, "This the guy who attacked you?" With a, "Yeah," Naruto stood before Sasuke. The man scowled. The man paused to consider his voice, then reached up to his nose and, with a sickening crack, returned it to normal. "Bell, bot do be Dave dear?" he asked. "Oh, that's better. It seems more rats have come to play." The man in front of Naruto caught his attention, and he narrowed his eyes. "You. That's not your real face, is it?" After blinking in surprise, the man burst out laughing. He tore off his face, revealing another underneath it. "So you could tell? Intriguing. I will definitely take your dead body back to my village. I've never experimented on a crystal bearer before. One with reptilian eyes, pale skin, and purple smudges around his eyes." "That's him," Takeshi growled and yelled in Naruto's mind as he looked into Naruto's eyes. "Mirai was killed by that bastard." Naruto snarled. "So it is you," he said, leaving Hinata perplexed. "I didn't expect to meet you so soon, bastard." The man said, "What are you talking about?" Angry and forgetting his friends were watching, Naruto yelled, "You know full well. Nearly 13 years ago, on October 10th, the day the 9-tailed fox attacked. I know that was your doing. I know who you are, and you're not getting away this time, Orochimaru." After blinking, Orochimaru burst out laughing. That giggling quickly evolved into loud, crazy laughter. He took off, but Naruto's gravity abilities blasted him back. "So you know, fox brat. I suppose it doesn't matter either way. You won't keep me from my prey." There was a loud roar at that point as the behemoth lord from before rushed out of the forest and struck Orochimaru. "Maybe not, but that can," Naruto told his companions. "Can you walk?" He turned to his wounded fellows. Sasuke grunted, struggling to stay upright. "NGH, no," he said. "I can barely stand." Sasuke's words were met with nods from the other 3. Naruto looked at the behemoth lord, who strangely prevented Orochimaru from getting involved. "It looks like we have a chance to leave. Hina, how far is it to the tower?" With her Byakugan activated, Hinata uttered the words, "About 3 kilometers." As Hinata picked up Akamaru, who licked her face in gratitude, Naruto nodded and made 4 clones to carry Sasuke, Sakura, Kiba, and Shino. Naruto asked, "You guys have both scrolls, right?" after glancing at Shikamaru. Shikamaru answered, "We just got the other earlier due to an overconfident grass ninja." "Why?" Naruto explained, "Can you guard us as we head to the tower? We're not in that good condition," which was only partially accurate. He didn't want to overdo it because he had just had his back broken and healed, and he didn't want Hinata fighting by herself, but he and Hinata could fight for a while. Shikamaru let out a sigh. "Fine, but you owe us an explanation afterwards about what you were shouting." "Fine. But you may not like me after." Naruto sighed and then leapt off, Hinata trailing behind him and his clones. After blinking in surprise at what the blonde had said, the other 3 quickly fell into formation around them. Considering that they were exhausted and had 5 injured, the trip to the tower was rather short. Without hesitation, they went through one of the double doors in the tower, and as soon as everyone was inside, Choji and Shikamaru slammed them. While everyone else fell and chose to rest, Naruto's clones chose to poof out of existence and set down their cargo rather than look around. When Orochimaru killed the damned behemoth lord who had prevented him from marking his prey, he was furious. No matter. He smiled evilly, thinking, "It's just a matter of time until I give Sasuke-kun my mark. And before Naruto-kun meddles once more, I will have to kill him." He sank into the earth and made his way to a hidden spot in the village, one that was hidden from view by his old fool the-sensei, the 3rd Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi. A big, dark-skinned lil-t with green hair in 3 braids that reached his ankles greeted him as he slid into the room. He was dressed in a black military shirt, dark green pants, black combat boots, a dark blue green jacket that was open and had gold trim at the bottom that reached his ankles, and a gauntlet with a face at the closed end that reached his right arm's elbow. "Were you successful in your goal?" the man said in a rough voice as he noticed Orochimaru. Orochimaru answered, "Unfortunately not. It seems a descendant of the one who killed you all those years ago was the one to stop me." Jegren, as he observed Jegren make a fistful of rage. "Unfortunately, he is also the one who holds the nine-tailed fox, and he seems to know of our involvement in its attack." "Shay," jeered Jegren. "What can he do? He is nowhere near strong enough to fight either of us. And either way, he'll die soon." He was shaking his head. "More importantly, are you sure your plant in the village can be trusted? He has no choice but to be my spy. Not if he wants her to live." Orochimaru chuckled evilly before responding, jerking his head to the other person in the room, an unconscious female about 15 years old with long silver hair and facial features resembling her brother's. She whispered his name while she slept, Kabuto-kun. With a scowl at the man before him, Hiruzen exclaimed, "I cannot do what your elder council has requested, Del D." The man's request in lieu of his council was so unbelievable to him. Del D replied, "Naruto is the heir to the throne, Lord Hokage. He is the only remaining member of the Alphatarian royal family, and as such, the elders believe he should accept his birthright. He is a registered ninja under my command, Del D. Your council has no authority over him." Before the elderly Hokage chose to expel him, Del D composed himself. He was aware from the beginning that the elders' scheme was a complete waste of time, but they were too corrupt in power, hungry to recognize its folly. To be honest, he was opposed to Naruto becoming a puppet ruler. After swiftly considering his next words, he said, "Lord Hokage, you do not understand what the Elder Council will do to try to get Naruto. They are extremely stubborn, and will do anything to ensure that Naruto ascends to the throne." With his eyes narrowed, Hiruzen questioned, "Is that a threat?" He rolled up his left sleeve to show an old linear scar that was entirely black. "No, sir. I am not threatening you, but warning you. They've done horrible things to keep their power, a truth I learned the hard way. This was done when I voiced that we should stop searching for any heirs to the throne about 20 years ago, and about 20 others agreed with me. The other protesters were executed, with the official story being that they tried to kill the elders, but I was spared only because of my skills as an archaeologist and the fact that I was too well known for the execution to be unsuspicious. Instead, they made me into their whipping boy. Please, Lord Hokage, if you do not accept their request, then you will have to ensure that the elders cannot reach him, or anyone he cares about, for that matter. They're tenacious and stubborn, and will do anything to keep their power." The elderly Hokage examined the man before him, searching for any sign of dishonesty. Since he couldn't find any, he assumed his warning was genuine. "I understand. Inform your elders that they will not get Naruto." Del D said, "Of course," getting up and putting his hat back on. After the Hokage deactivated the secrecy seals, he bowed and left the office with his final warning. "If you receive a message saying, 'The radiance is gone, and the golems are coming for the maelstrom,' it means I am most likely dead, and the elders are coming for Naruto." That is concerning, Hiruzen reflected. "I'll definitely be watching for that kind of message." After their rest, everyone stood up and stretched a little before finally looking around the room they had entered. The only things in the room were two walkways that led deeper into the tower, a few tags, and a puzzle that the third Hokage had written on the wall. "What's the writing for?" Ino wondered aloud prior to reading. "If qualities of heaven are your desire, acquire knowledge and wisdom to take your mind higher. If earthly qualities are what you lack, train your body in the fields and prepare to attack. When both heaven and earth are open together, the path of peril will revert to the righteous path forever. This, something, is the secret way that guides us from this place today. What does that mean?" She raised her arms in thought. "Well, guys, what are your thoughts?" Naruto questioned the individuals in his head. After giving it some thought, Lael remarked, "Well, each team received either an earth scroll or a heaven scroll. It might be urging you to open them." Amidate Lion concurred, saying, "That does sound like what the riddle is saying, at least partly. The other aspect relates to your body and mind. It makes more sense to substitute physical strength for earthly qualities, and mental strength for heavenly qualities." Naruto did, confirming Amidate Lion's correctness. Each team agreed after he presented the ideas to the other ninja. Each team stood in a line, and when they opened their scrolls, they discovered a complicated array. "Guys, throw away the scrolls. They're summoning scrolls," yelled Naruto as he and Sasuke, who had opened the scrolls for their team, tensed and threw them away in an X pattern. The other teams complied as the scrolls began to smoke and were thrown in front of them in similar patterns. Until the smoke cleared, the genin could see a man with brown eyes, brown hair tied in a ponytail, and a scar across the bridge of his nose. He was dressed in a dark blue shirt and ninja pants, a chunin vest, and a leaf headband. Puffs of smoke erupted from the scrolls. The genin identified the two chunins standing to either side of the first as two of the proctors from the initial test. Confused, the three chunin glanced at one another before turning to face the teams. First to speak was the person in the center. He said, "Why don't you two take a break? I'll handle it," and the other chunin nodded before vanishing in a whirlpool of leaves using a jutsu. Then he spoke to the genin. When he saw Naruto, his eyes widened. "First off, congratulations on passing the second exam, you guys. You did real well to get here this early." "Wah. Naruto, is that really you?" Naruto said, "Of course it's me, Iruka. Sensei," a little disappointed that his academy friend and teacher didn't initially recognize him. After a few moments of staring, Iruka shook his head, finally taking the ninja life seriously. "Eh, kid?" The response from Naruto was, "I have been after the mission to Wave." Iruka laughed and remarked, "Well, I don't think anything else will surprise me now. That's the last thing I expected from you." With a small smirk, Naruto exclaimed, "Really? How's this?" He abruptly put an arm around Hinata, who had been standing beside him, and gave her a full-on kiss, causing her to flush, before she put her arms around his neck and returned the kiss. Iruka was stunned as she stood there. Hinata had been a complete nerd around Naruto back at the academy, hardly able to speak without stuttering or passing out whenever she spoke to him or was near him. Now, she was kissing him without passing out. Fainting, but blushing profusely. Iruka shouted, "What? When did that happen?" And Naruto and Hinata separated as all the genin jumped in shock at how loud he was. A month ago," blushing, Hinata replied. "Naruto.kun asked me out, and we've been dating since." All of the former students laughed when Iruka blinked and muttered something about keeping him informed about them. "Okay. Back on track," Iruka replied. "Since you all got here on the first day, rest up until the exam is over. You know, you all have the second fastest time for completing the second exam. You were beaten by a team from Sand by about an hour, but it's still an accomplishment for genin straight out of the academy." He was beaming with pride. As everyone sat in Team 7's room, with Hinata the only one not looking at the whiskered blonde, Shikamaru said, "Okay, Naruto, what did you mean by Orochimaru being behind the nine-tailed fox incident?" With a sigh, Naruto got up and moved toward the window. "Before I explain, I have to explain where and who I got that information from." Hinata questioned, "Naruto.kun, are you really going to tell them?" and flinched when 9 sets of eyes briefly locked on her. Naruto said, "Hina, I don't really have a choice," with a hint of regret. "What do you all know about the incident?" "Only what the academy books have said, and what my clan told me," Shino replied. "The fourth gave his life and one other life to prevent the nine-tailed fox from attacking the village, but no one knows why. Most of the Hidden Leaf's ninja and civilians spit on that sacrifice every day." Shino's level of knowledge astounded Naruto and Hinata, but Naruto responded, "Yes. In fact, that somewhat eases the situation. However, without my express consent, you are not permitted to share what I am about to share with anybody. This is an S-class secret that carries a death sentence, but Hinata is already aware of it." "Then don't tell us if you'll be killed for telling us," Sakura said, her eyes widening. "Sakura, don't worry. The law that prohibits people from telling others does not apply to me," Naruto clarified. "How in the world are you above a law that carries the death penalty?" Kiba inquired. "The reason for this is that the law somehow considers him Naruto, correct?" Shikamaru yawned after explaining languidly. "You're correct. According to our academy books, the fourth killed the nine-tailed fox. That is untrue. Demons cannot be killed by humans unless they are female and have given birth within the last week or are younger than a year, and the 9 Biju can only be killed by each other. In reality, he was sealed by the fourth. However, he had nothing to use for the container. Not even a day old, he had to use a newborn. What day is my birthday now?" The others, with the exception of Hinata and Shikamaru, appeared perplexed until Shino's words caused them to gasp. "October the 10th. Am I right, a euro, Naruto? I'm what's called a Jinchuriki, or power of human sacrifice. It's a term used to describe what humans with a demon sealed inside them are." Naruto turned around, lifted his shirt, and poured chakra into Hinata's stomach, causing a nosebleed. The complicated array of seals that appeared on his stomach was all the evidence anyone needed. He let go of the shirt and looked down, tears beginning to form, and said, "I can understand if you never want to talk to me again." At that, everyone appeared shocked, but then Ino stood up, approached him, and gave him a hard slap across the face. "Naruto, never say that again. You are you, and the fox is the fox," Ino said, nearly shouting at him. "Two souls in one body is all that you are." Everyone nodded when Sasuke said, "Ino's right," and Hinata stood up to embrace him while kissing the area where Ino had slapped him. Naruto gazed at each of them, tears streaming from his eyes as he said, "Thank you. It doesn't matter because I figured it out years ago." Everyone laughed when Shikamaru rolled his eyes and said, "It's really just troublesome to hate someone just because he or she has a demon sealed inside him or her." "What did you mean, Naruto, when you claimed that Orochimaru was responsible for the assault?" As she sat back down, Ino asked, but Naruto was unable to respond due to a knock on the door. "Come in," Naruto beckoned as he and Hinata took their seats beside one another. To the surprise of the majority of the genin, the door opened to let the third Hokage enter the room and shut it behind him. "Hello, Naruto. I've heard that you came across a snake that I misplaced in the woods." After a moment of perplexity, Naruto said, "Yeah, it was definitely Orochimaru." Everyone became a little tense when the Hokage sighed and said, "I also heard what else you encountered in there, and of course your conversation with your friends here." Hiruzen laughed and said, "Don't worry, none of you are in trouble, although I will be informing your parents of your knowledge of Takeshi." With the exception of Hinata and Naruto, everyone appeared perplexed. "Who is Takeshi?" did Ino ask. As Naruto clarified, "That's the fox's name, Ino," the genin became interested. "What's his name? Have you spoken with him?" Sakura inquired. "Yes, and I have, indeed. Rumors about the Biju are not to be taken for granted. Once you get along with him, he's actually a pretty good guy." Naruto's mouth briefly twitched in a smirk as Takeshi moaned and slapped his forehead, saying, "Don't tell them that." "What made him attack the village, then?" Sakura inquired, and Takeshi interrupted Naruto before he could respond. Takeshi remarked, "Let me tell them." After a few seconds, Naruto said in his head, "All right," and then he pulled out a kunai and put the blade on Takeshi's wrist, shocking everyone by drawing blood. "I'll let Takeshi explain himself." "What are you doing, Naruto?" As the blood spilled onto the ground, Ino let out a scream. Once he had enough blood, Naruto said, "Giving Takeshi a body so he can speak to you," and to the surprise of everyone but Hinata, Shikamaru, and the Hokage, the wound began to heal before their eyes and closed in seconds without even a scratch left. Naruto made a few hand gestures and declared, "Blood clone jutsu." Immediately, the blood began to congeal and form up, building itself up and changing color in certain places until an exact replica of Naruto sat next to the real one. "Where did you learn such a jutsu, Naruto?" Shocked, the Hokage asked. After flying through a few more hand signals, Naruto slammed a hand onto the seal and exclaimed, "Forbidden jutsu. Soul release jutsu. Takeshi taught me it, but this is the first time I've used it around others." Everyone covered their eyes to prevent damage, and when the light faded, they lowered them only to see the eyes of those who hadn't seen him widen at Takeshi's human form. He produced a glowing, deep red sphere and shot it into his clone, which glowed the same shade of red as the sphere before blinding everyone. Takeshi chuckled as he glanced at them. "What? Are you anticipating a large, multi-tailed fox? Well, I don't think the civilian council would appreciate me destroying the tower and scaring the hell out of everyone, so I chose my human form," Takeshi said, laughing as the genin nodded. Shikamaru was the first to recover and inquired, "All right, so why did you attack the village?" With a sorrowful sigh, Takeshi said, "Orochimaru and a crystal bearer tricked me. After giving birth to our kid Genshi a few days prior, my mate Mirei was still a little exhausted that night, so I went hunting for her while she fed him. Upon returning, I discovered blood at our cave's entrance and hurried inside, only to witness the bearer standing over my kid's crystallized body while that bastard Orochimaru stabbed her in the heart. I screamed and sprang at them, but they swiftly escaped with an earth jutsu, leaving a leaf headband in their wake. Mirei coughed up blood just as I was about to pursue them, so I hurried to her side and used a healing jutsu, but it was too late. Even people who had previously heard the story were crying uncontrollably or had tears in their eyes at this point, and Takeshi's voice was breaking as his tears fell to the ground. I was barely able to buy her enough time for her to say goodbye, he said. She had already lost a lot of blood from protecting Genshi, and had 3 different venoms in her remaining blood. Despite the fact that the village had nothing to do with it, I was so overcome with grief and rage that I simply picked up the headband and ran to the village, changing into my beast form as soon as I left the cave. I searched my memory and discovered that the village was innocent only after I had been sealed and had calmed down. As the aforementioned guys consoled them, Hinata sobbed into Naruto's shoulder, Sakura sobbed into Sasuke's, and Ino sobbed into Choji's. Naruto looked at Takeshi, tears streaming down his cheeks. He had only ever heard the brief version because it had seemed to hurt Takeshi so much to recall that night. Regaining his composure, Takeshi said, "I won't blame you if you still hate me for what I did." Sakura was able to hold back her tears long enough to say, I don't hate you. Orochimaru is to blame, and that B-Bearer is to blame. They're the ones who should be held accountable, not you. You simply stepped into a trap. You are just as much of a victim as the entire village. I agree, Shoji said, blotting away his tears, because you reacted as any of us would have in your shoes. I'm positive that I would have. The other genin concurred, and when they were done, Takeshi muttered, "Thank you." He then disappeared in a whirl of leaves, leaving Naruto a mental note with his destination so the others wouldn't be concerned. Naruto informed his leader, "He's on the roof in a transformation right now, and wants some time to himself," after the man gave him a curious look and nodded. The Hokage got up and walked to the door, then turned back to face the genin. "Very well then. I suggest you all rest up for the next few days," he said. He then departed, leaving the genin to converse with one another. "I will see you all after the second exam is over." The Chunin exam's second stage ended 4 days after Naruto told his friends about Takeshi. Only Naruto's team, Hinata's team, Team 10, Gaara's team, Neji's team, Kabuto's team, and the Sound team made it through. Currently, the teams were arranged in 3-person lines in a large rectangular room with walkways on opposite walls, a large statue of the ram hand sign in between them at one end, and a doorway on the opposite side of the room of the statue. The Hokage and the Jonin senseis of each team, along with a few other Konoha Jonin, Iruka, Ibiki, and Anko, were standing in front of the genin, while other Chunin watched from another room via a live video feed. The Hokage looked at the gathered genin and thought, 7 teams passed. From Konoha, teams 7 through 10 passed along with Kabuto's team. We also have 1 team each from Sand and Sound. Not a bad turnout. After clearing his throat, the Hokage congratulated everyone on passing the second test. Let me clarify one thing before we start the third exam. It relates to the exam's fundamental goal. You were informed that the purpose of the exams was to improve the shinobi standard and foster international friendship. However, that is untrue. In actuality, this set of tests is a technical conflict between countries. Yes, Chunin will be chosen, but there is a more significant goal. It helps prospective customers decide who to hire for missions by showcasing a village's strengths. For this reason, you will engage in combat in front of the nation's aristocrats and leaders. Even if necessary, to the death. The balance of power preserves the friendship between the shinobi nations. Keep in mind that this is not your typical test. You jeopardize not just your own aspirations and futures, but also the honor and reputation of your village. You get it? Yes, sir. The genin uttered those words. The Hokage began, now, but halted when a man kneeling in front of him, wearing a Chunin vest and a regular dark blue long sleeve shirt and pants, appeared with a clipboard. "Actually, Lord Hokage, if you would allow me, Gekko Hayate, to explain, as the proctor of the third round," said the individual. With a nod, the Hokage said, "Granted." He turned to face the genin, displaying his sickly pale complexion and the bags under his brown eyes, and said, "I'm afraid, cough. We will have to hold, cough, cough, cough. A preliminary round before we start, cough. The third exams. Thank you, Hokage-sama." As he raised his eyebrows, Naruto wondered, did they drag him out of the hospital for this? Lael reminded his descendant, "Naruto, appearances can be deceiving. What does preliminary round mean?" Shikamaru inquired. "To be honest, there are still too many applicants for us to move on to the third exam. To cut down on the number of applicants, we typically have to go through a preliminary round. We cannot waste the time of the many distinguished guests who will be watching the third exam by having too many applications," as Hokage-sama stated. "Therefore, you will be permitted to leave if someone does not feel capable of doing the work." A few seconds later, Kabuto held up his hand and said, "I'm out. My ears are still not completely healed from my encounter with the sound crew." With a glance at the clipboard, Hayate said, "You mean Kabuto Yakushi? All right, you may leave." Knowing that a few people were staring at him with narrowed eyes, Kabuto turned around and walked out of the room, feeling a twinge of regret and remorse at the thought of what would happen, but he brushed it off right away. "Before we continue, from here on you fight as individuals, not as a team," Hayate said, coughing to draw the genin's attention back to himself. "If no one else is withdrawing, we can start the preliminaries. There will now be 1-on-1 competitions, with the victor, going on to the third test." There is no holding back in this, cough, until one of the combatants, cough, concedes defeat or is knocked unconscious. Each pair will continue to fight. Coughing and killing are acceptable but not recommended. I'll call a match if I decide, cough, it's over. After that, any fighting, coughing, will be put an end to with force. From now on, your cough matches will be chosen, cough, at random and shown on the monitor above. He jerked his head, pointing to the monitor itself, which was now visible due to a piece of the wall rising. The names of the first two fighters appeared on the screen after a few seconds, and Hayate looked up and said, Sasuke Uchiha vs Yoroi Ikado. As the monitor was fully revealed, names appeared quickly above and below a versus symbol, each one replacing the one before it. Please stay here, both of you, while the others go to the upper gallery. Each team was welcomed by their senseis, and the teams headed up with the Konoha teams on one walkway and the sand and sound teams on the other. How long do you think he'll last? Kakashi asked Naruto and Sakura, still wearing the mask that concealed the lower half of his face and with his silver hair tilted to the left because his headband covered his left eye. In reference to Yoroi, he inquired. In opposition to Sasuke, no more than 1 or 2 minutes, Naruto answered. Yoroi, who was dressed like Kabuto except for wearing a cloth over the lower half of his face and wearing his headband like a bandana, was measured up by Sasuke on the floor. Uchiha, are you afraid? Yoroi made fun of it. Sasuke shot back, raising his right hand and pointing his index and middle fingers at his opponent. You should be, he said, adding that this would only take a maximum of 30 seconds. Yoroi's eyes narrowed. We will see. Hayate looked back and forth between the two fighters. He ordered, leaping back, begin. Without wasting any time, Sasuke signed and yelled, Fire style. Fireball jutsu. He then blew a big fireball at Yoroi while holding his hand to his mouth. Jumping over it, Yoroi signed. His chakra coated hand barely touched his shirt as he landed and rushed at the Uchiha. Sasuke stumbled a little before leaping back, realizing that his chakra was being depleted. That's an interesting jutsu you have. But you need physical contact to steal my chakra. And that will only get easier, Yoroi taunted, suddenly right in front of Sasuke. After grabbing him by the neck, he was kicked in the groin. With a moan, he let go of the Uchiha, who kicked him in the head before slamming his fist into Yoroi's stomach, knocking him back. Then he hurried him, kicked Yoroi in the back, then spun around and slammed his fist down, knocking him unconscious. Sasuke smirked and taunted his opponent, asking, You were saying? Cough, winner. Sasuke Uchiha, Hayate said as medics came in and carried Yoroi out on a stretcher. Sasuke approached his team with a sly smile. Not bad, Sasuke, said Kakashi. You beat your opponent without displaying all of your techniques, as well as doing it quickly. Sasuke said, Thanks, sensei, as he glanced up at the board, which now displayed the next match. Hayate's gaze shifted to the board. Kankuro vs Masumi Tsurugi. Will both combatants please descend to the floor? Glaring at one another the entire time, the two fighters strode down. Masumi was dressed like Yoroi, with the only difference being his glasses were clear, showing his black eyes. Kankuro mocked, ready to lose. When Masumi said, I could say the same for you, she shot back. As he shrugged off the package on his back and held it upright with his hand on top, Kankuro raised his eyebrows and said, Really? Prove it. I will. The match began with Hayate, and Masumi swung his fist at Kankuro. Kankuro blocked the strike with his free hand, only to shout, What? As the fist started wrapping around his arm. Masumi began to bend strangely and quickly encircled Kankuro to stop him from moving. Masumi tightened his hold on Kankuro's neck as he said, I can dislocate my joints and control them with chakra. It's easy if I need to dodge an attack, or, say, break someone's neck, suggesting a threat. So, will you withdraw? Kankuro said, Go screw yourself, and Masumi shrugged. Kankuro's head drooped and there was a loud cracking sound that caused almost everyone, visible and invisible, to wince and widen their eyes. Masumi clarified, I gave him the option, and he's only unconscious, upon noticing Hayate's hunched eyes. Everyone jumped as Kankuro's head abruptly spun around, taunting, Well, you didn't do a good job, did you? Masumi exclaimed, What? As Kankuro exploded, exposing a three-eyed humanoid puppet with a dark brown cloth covering its body. The actual Kankuro emerged from the discarded package, facing his puppet and holding his open left hand in a cup. He is a master of puppetry. Kankuro began clenching his hand, and the puppet began to squeeze Masumi, who shouted, I give up. Hayate exclaimed, Cough, winner. Kankuro, as Kankuro let go of Masumi and turned to face Naruto and his group. Some recon is in order, Kankuro thought. He made everyone suspicious by going up the walkway with the Konoha teams rather than returning to his own team. Instead, Naruto turned to Kakashi and remarked, "That was an interesting idea, switching himself with his puppet. But what would he have done if a fire jutsu was aimed at him?" Kakashi remarked, "I'm sure he has some ways around that." By that time, Kankuro had arrived at their location and said, "Yeah, I have a few ways. By the way, I hope there's no animosity from before." Naruto gave him a quick look. "I think you learned your lesson." Although Kankuro's eye twitched, he chose not to answer. After clearing his throat, Hayate stated, "Next match, Shino Aburame vs Zaku Abumi." Kankuro looked at them both and scowled. "Out of curiosity, who do you think will win this one?" Naruto scowled while he pondered. He said, "Shino," after a few seconds. Interesting. I would have put my money on that Zaku guy, but that's only cause he's more of a mystery." With a, "Never underestimate an opponent," Naruto answered. Point. Hayate looked at the combatants and shouted, "Begin." A blast of air erupted from Zaku's raised hand, sending Shino reeling. But Shino recovered with only minor wounds. "It will take more than that breeze to defeat me," said the man. Zaku charged both hands and fired a more powerful blast at the Aburame, who almost casually moved aside, asking, "How's this then?" That was weaker than the last. Without saying a word, Zaku tried to blast Shino once more but stopped when he noticed insects crawling on his skin, as if they were emerging from his jacket. When Zaku turned around, he saw more insects behind him. "You noticed my parasitic destruction beetles," Shino said. "They attack in swarms and devour their prey's chakra. If you want to survive this onslaught, surrender." With his teeth clenched, Zaku turned an arm to face Shino and the insects behind him. He yelled, "Don't mess with me," as he was about to blast them with air, but his arms exploded, making them useless, and his eyes widened. He moaned, "What?" as he examined his drooping arms and saw that insects were obstructing the holes in the middle of his palms that allowed him to release compressed air. He was struck with realization. The purpose of his explanation was to divert attention. "It's over," spoke Shino. "You." Zaku spit out, running toward Shino, only to be struck in the face by a backhand punch. Hayate declared, "Winner." Shino Aburame, as he watched as medical personnel entered and carried Zaku away on a stretcher. "Man, what's the next match gonna bring, with these freaky abilities everyone's showing?" Naruto grumbled. "Like you're one to talk, with your chakra reserves," Sasuke teasingly said. When Sakura and Hinata saw the next match, they stopped laughing at the boys' banter. "Next match, Sakura Haruno vs Ino Yamanaka," declared Hayate. Sakura glanced at her former friend who was now vying for Sasuke's attention. Ino decided not to waste time and jumped the rail while grinning. Sakura trailed behind right away, turning to face her group. When Ino said, "Sakura, you should withdraw, your forehead will only make you a bigger target." The jab at the size of Sakura's forehead caused her eye to twitch, but she chose to ignore it. "You should withdraw, Ino.Pig. You're not even in the same league as me." Kankuro laughed on the balcony. "Looks like we have a catfight on our hands." "You have no idea," smirking, Naruto said. "Ino won't know what hit her." Sakura yelled, "Water style. Condensation," as Hayate began the match. Water splattered in big puddles across the field, confusing everyone. Then, Sakura yelled, "Water style. Water wolves." The water on the ground merged into 3 spheres, which formed into 3 wolves that were standing at Sakura's sides and charging Ino while growling and barking. When the wolves attempted to bite her, Ino slashed at them, grabbing a kunai and beginning to run as far away as she could. Ino yelled in agony as one of the 2 wolves that were left bit into her outstretched arm, slowing her down and allowing the other to bite her other arm. One of them nearly bit into her arm, but that was destroyed with a slash. When Sakura yelled, "Water style. Liquid bullets." The wolf exploded into spheres the size of Ino's hand and rushed her, sending Ino reeling into the wall where she fell unconscious. Ino had kicked out at one, destroying it, and was about to punch the one holding her other arm. "Winner. Sakura Haruno," declared Hayate. "Yeah," Sakura exclaimed, pounding her fist as she approached her group. "That was good, Sakura," Naruto said, giving her a nod. She said, "Thanks, Naruto, Sakura." Sasuke confirmed, "Yeah, not bad," with a slightly embarrassed expression that Naruto and Kakashi saw and smirked at. "He likes Sakura, huh? I suppose he's not gay after all," Naruto reflected. "What led you to believe that he was?" Amidate Lion inquired. Naruto clarified that he had never been particularly interested in girls. However, that might be because he was too preoccupied with killing his brother and exacting revenge on his clan. Or he lacked motivation. Naruto grinned as he glanced at the screen and remarked, "Looks like I get to have fun." After Kankuro and his team had turned to face the board, Hayate announced, "Next match, Naruto Uzumaki vs Tenten." A soft hand on Naruto's shoulder prevented him from gripping the railing. He noticed Hinata grinning at him when he glanced over his shoulder. "Good luck," Hinata said, planting a kiss on his cheek. Naruto gave Hinata Chan a one-armed embrace and said, "Thanks, Hinata Chan," before leaping to the ground. Lee said, "Tenten Chan, good luck," just as Tenten was ready to descend. "Don't worry. I'm a kunoichi. I can handle it solo." Tenten grinned back and strode to the floor, where she positioned herself in front of Naruto, facing the foreign ninja. Lael scowled as he studied Tenten's features through Naruto's eyes. "She looks really familiar. I'm positive I've already met one of her ancestors, but where?" Naruto gave a mental shrug. "Perhaps it will find you." With a smile, Naruto told Tenten, "Don't think I'll go easy on you just because you're a girl." Tenten shot back, smiling, "I'd prefer it if you didn't." "Begin," he yelled, leaping back, after glancing between the two and thinking, "I have a feeling this match will be interesting." Tenten reached into her pouch, pulled out a scroll, and unfurled it, unleashing a variety of weapons that she hurled at Naruto. Naruto dodged and ducked, occasionally using his gravity abilities to flick a weapon away. Before long, every weapon was scattered across the area surrounding him. Tenten's eyes narrowed. He sent some flying away from him, but how? He left them untouchable. Naruto motioned for her to turn it on, saying, "Come on, that can't be all you got." With a slight growl, Tenten snatched up another scroll and threw back her free hand, bringing the weapons on the ground closer to her. "How's this then?" she asked, unfolding the other scroll and launching her previous weapons and more at Naruto. Whoa! As he dodged and threw them away, Naruto thought, "What is the number of hers?" Weapons were aimed at him from all sides, and his eyes grew wide. Oh no! Just as he was about to stop the weapons by erecting a barrier around himself, he realized that they were pressing against it. Whoa! He pondered. Then he had a thought. "Looks like your student has lost, my eternal rival," exclaimed Guy, a man of Kakashi's age who wore a Jonin vest and resembled an older Lee. Kakashi responded, "Don't count Naruto out yet, Guy," as he saw the weapons edging toward Naruto before they began to spin around him. Tenten's gaze expanded. "What the?" Naruto yelled, "Ha!" as the weapons sped away from him, embedding themselves in the ceiling and walls without getting within 5 inches of anyone. Tenten's mouth fell open. She began, "How?" but stopped when she noticed Naruto's torn jacket, which revealed the crystal in his cheek and provided her with the solution. "You almost had me there, Tenten," Naruto remarked, rolling his right shoulder in the manner of his forebear. Then he dropped into a stance that was almost unknown to everyone in taijutsu. He stood with his left side facing Tenten, his other arm bent at the same angle but positioned behind him, and his left hand in front of his chest with his arm bent at a right angle towards the kunoichi. His feet were bouncing just a little bit beneath each shoulder. Tenten squinted once more, then produced a third scroll, unlocked it, and revealed a sword. With a half-foot design between the hilt and the blade, it featured a 2-dot and a half-foot double-edged blade. Tenten picked it up and held it in Naruto's direction. She hurried him, saying, "Let's see how you fare against this, then." She jumped over and flipped behind him as Naruto ducked under the first swipe and tried to sweep her legs, but he was able to stop her next swing with a kunai. After retreating, Tenten swung at Naruto's legs after feinting at his head. After jumping, Naruto spun away and avoided Tenten's stab. "Not bad," smirking, Tenten said. After exchanging blows for some time without either of them landing a blow, Naruto executed a double feint and sent Tenten flying backwards by slamming his gravity-infused fist into her stomach. She stood back up unsteadily, breathing heavily. Standing where he was, Naruto was also panting, albeit not as much as Tenten. Tenten thought, "Wearing him out isn't a good option because he has more stamina than me. Additionally, he is a crystal bearer. How can I help?" Then she had a thought. That might work. She steadied herself before charging at him once more, swinging her sword so that he was forced to dodge until she swept his legs and, with her sword at his throat, pinned him to the ground. "It's over," she declared, grinning and panting. Naruto's eyebrow went up. He said, "You sure?" and then vanished in a cloud of smoke. Tenten yelled, "What?" before she was struck in the face and flung back, landing on the ground too tired to stand. Naruto smirked a little as he stood where he struck Tenten. The match was then called by Hayate. Winner, Naruto Uzumaki. Tenten, breathing heavily, inquired, "When did you create a clone?" Naruto walked over to her and explained, "When I blasted your weapons away." "Dang it." Tenten accepted the hand that Naruto extended. He said, "You're good. I look forward to a rematch." As he lifted her up, he handed Tenten the tiny brown spherical pill he had taken out of his pouch. Tenten said, "Thanks," and ate it. Her energy returned instantly. Naruto said, "No problem," as they ascended again. Lael recognized Tenten's ancestors at that moment. As he considered the sword, he inhaled, Kais and Bell. Naruto looked at Tenten and thought, "So Tenten is related to your best friend and his wife. From what you told me, she did say something like what Bell said." With a "Great job, Naruto," Kakashi gave his pupil high marks. "Well done." When Naruto saw the names for the upcoming match, his eyes widened. "Thanks, sensei," he said. Next match. Hinata Hyuga versus Neji Hyuga. Hinata tensed up a little and turned to face her cousin, who gave her a fierce look before descending. Sensing that she was upset, Naruto gave Hinata a hug and reassured her, saying, "Don't worry, you'll do fine." Hinata said, "Thank you, Naruto-kun," and then she too went down. Kankuro glanced at Neji and Hinata. He remarked, "So they're siblings?" after observing some facial similarities. According to Naruto, cousins, actually, but their fathers were identical twins, so they can be mistaken for siblings. "Must be rough, having to fight family," Kankuro remarked. "Usually, but there's been bad blood between the main and branch families of their clan. Hinata. Shan is in the main family, and Neji is in the branch family." Hinata. Shan said that some main family members from the first generation made clan laws that favored them, and the branch family resents them for it even today, Naruto stated, firmly grasping the rail. Between them, Hayate glanced. "Begin. This could result in a carnage." "Before we begin, I have something to say to you, Lady Hinata," Neji said, lowering himself to the floor. Hinata turned to Neji in confusion. "You should withdraw. You are not the type to lead, and you are too soft. You have a world-class inferiority complex and no self-confidence." "That is where you are wrong, Neji." Nissan expressed Hinata. "This past month I have gained confidence, both in myself and in my friends." Neji spat bitterly. "HMPH, you speak of that failure." In reference to Naruto. "Once a failure, always a failure, just like you, my dear cousin." Naruto's hold on the rail became more firm. The taunts directed at him he could take, but not Hinata. "I'm getting annoyed with him." "A leopard can't change its spots no more than people can change who they are," Neji stated. "You can't win. Fate will not allow it. You can't change your fate." "You don't," began Hinata. "No one can change anything about themselves. All they can do is walk down the path destiny has set in store for them," Neji said. Naruto shouted, "Shut up!" to get everyone's attention. "Who are you to tell her what she can and can't do? Fate is just a bunch of bull people used to hide behind when things go wrong. It doesn't control you, you control it, Hinata. Kick his ass and prove him wrong." After glancing at her boyfriend, Hinata grinned. She thought, "Thank you, Naruto-kun." Neji tightened his jaw. "He's a pain in the ass, Kami." When he turned back to Hinata, he noticed that her eyes had changed expression. "So you will not back down? I am not to be held accountable for what happens." Veins bulged around Hinata's eyes as she activated her Byakugan. She leaned back and assumed a taijutsu stance, her palms facing Neji. "Neji. Nissan, let's fight." Neji scowled and assumed the same position. Lee let out a gasp. "Of course. The Hyuga use the same style." "Huh?" inquired Kankuro. "The Hyuga clan has a taijutsu style called the Gentle Fist. Instead of attacking the muscles and bones, they attack something equally important, the chakra network, the energy lines that chakra flows through, much like our blood is carried through our veins. The network is closely woven with our vital organs, and any damage to the network will hurt our organs. Though anyone can learn the style, the Byakugan allows them to perfect it, because with it they can see the chakra network," Naruto explained as the battle began. With amazement, Kankuro questioned, "They attack the network, but how can that be dangerous?" Kakashi remarked, "Because there are 361 points on the chakra network that act as nodes," while Neji gave a little groan and was struck lightly in the abdomen. If struck, those nodes can halt or enhance the flow of chakra. Essentially, they can cut off person's chakra flow. After slamming a palm strike into Neji's abdomen, Hinata felt a blow to her stomach and coughed up blood. Neji grabbed her arm and pressed a point on it after she swatted his hand away and tried to hit his stomach again. Before disappearing in a puff of smoke, she grinned. Neji cried out, "What?" and then abruptly leaned back as Hinata appeared out of nowhere, aiming a blow at his side. He countered her, deactivating a few nodes on her left arm before she withdrew it. When Hinata tried to clench her left fist after leaping back out of Neji's reach, it was reacting slowly. Her eyes begged her question as she glanced up at Naruto, thinking rapidly. Knowing what she was implying, Naruto nodded and grinned softly. He inhaled, "Show him what you can do, Haim." Sakura gave Naruto a perplexed look before Hinata quickly rushed Neji and delivered palm strikes as quickly as she could after raising her right hand and adjusting her chakra flow. She's faster than she was before, Neji thought, grunting as he deflected her blows. But not quickly enough. Then he changed his footing and started attacking. When he hit Hinata's chest, causing her to cough up blood, his eyes widened and she thrust a sphere of chakra into his right hand. What? How is she aware of that? He grunted as the sphere struck him and sent him back before destabilizing and exploding, sending them both flying back a few feet. I thought as I made to shut off the nodes in her right arm. Neji held his stomach and grunted. Is that what you resort to? Stolen jutsu? You disgrace your clan and your village. That jutsu was not stolen. I learned it like anyone else, Hinata remarked, gripping her abdomen. Neji spat. It does not matter either way. You will lose, and charged her with angry eyes. Due to her delayed reaction, Hinata was struck by several palms on the chest and chin, causing her to stagger backwards while coughing up more blood. It's over. It's not over, exclaimed Hinata. You can barely stand. You have received too much damage to your organs. You have lost. That is fate. Now stop this pathetic acting. Pathetic? Nissan, take a good look at yourself, and then tell me who's pathetic. As he charged her, Neji gave a silent growl. When Naruto saw what Neji was going to do, his eyes widened up on the balcony. He reacted by jumping off and landing in front of Hinata, then punching Neji in the jaw to send him flying. After he recovered, Neji charged once more, but Kurenai, Hayate, Guy, and Kakashi stopped him this time. Guy remarked, "That is enough, Neji, you told me you wouldn't let your family issues get into this." Neji appeared to calm down and relax at this point, which caused the Jonin to release him. After the Jonin stopped Neji, Hinata collapsed, and Naruto turned to catch her. As Naruto held Hinata, he felt a surge of rage and anger. He placed her down gently before revealing a murderous intent that caused the rookies to clutch at their throats and growl, almost maniacally, "Neji." He spun around as a burst of blue light blinded everyone. Everyone's eyes widened as they took in Naruto's appearance as the light faded. A wing of energy poured from a large, light, blue, crescent-shaped crystal that floated by the one in his cheek. Wings of energy also flowed from a second light, blue crystal, which floated in front of his chest in an elaborate pattern. Over his back, a third crystal, cylindrical and golden, yellow, glowed with golden energy that flowed from it like wings. His left foot was on a surfboard, and his right foot was wrapped in crystal that stretched into it. His chest, legs, and most of his face were all covered in light blue crystal, as were his hands and upper arms. Veins of both colored crystals ran over his actual veins, and his back was entirely covered in golden yellow crystal. He was floating several feet off the ground, and his eyes were glowing a fierce light blue to complete the breathtaking appearance. Everyone saw Naruto's face twisted in anger at that moment. Although Naruto's gravity abilities weren't helping, he was able to inch closer to Neji before all of the Jonin grabbed hold of him and stopped him from killing him. Kakashi shouted, "Naruto, don't, it's not worth it," for him to hear. However, Naruto simply gave a silent growl, "Naruto." Then Hinata said, N.No. Naruto.kun. D.Don, T, in a voice so tiny that it was astounding she was heard at all. Naruto left his advanced hyper mode after a short while and turned to Hinata, gently lifting her up. He gave Neji a scowl. He growled, "Neji, you better pray she lives, or I will make you pay," before calling forth a portal and entering it. A shadow clone was left to watch the remaining matches and ensure that no more matches got out of control. In the hospital, Naruto sat in Hinata's room, worriedly observing her unconscious face. He had no idea how to assist her. Why? Neji had to try to kill her, but why? Why? Why am I in so much pain, even though I'm not hurt? He heard Kakashi say, "Because you are realizing how important she is to you," and when he turned to face the door, he saw his sensei and team join Kurenai's team in the room. He paused to sort through the memories after witnessing his clone dispel. Kiba lost to Tamari. Shikamaru defeated Kintsuchi, a kunoichi from Sound. Lee lost to Gaara, but Gaara was unable to crush Lee's left limbs because of his clone, and Choji lost to Dosu Kinuda, the last of the Sound ninja. When he found out that Neji would be his first opponent in the finals, he felt a somber sense of accomplishment. The second match pitted Sasuke against Gaara. then Shino against Kankuro, Shikamaru against Tamari, and Dosu against Sakura. The winners of the final 2 matches then faced one another. Kakashi gave Hinata a look. "How is she?" Naruto trailed off, pain etched on his face. The doctors said they can minimize the damage as much as they can, after that. For a few seconds, everyone was silent as they realized how much the blonde, whiskered prankster had changed. After a moment, Kakashi said, "Naruto, I know how much it hurts, but you have to prepare for the finals in a month. At least increase the time you can stay in hyper mode. I know a guy who can help train you for that." With a hollow voice, Naruto questioned, "Is he good?" When Kakashi said, "The best for the job, he trained your father." After all, everyone's attention was drawn. "My father?" inquired Naruto. Kakashi gave nod, "He'll do." With his visible gaze fixed on Naruto, Kakashi remarked, "Sakura, I know a guy with a water affinity who can help with your jutsus. I'll have him stop by your house tomorrow." Sakura said, "Okay," peering at the ground. "I hope Hinata survives. I can't even imagine Naruto's level of disappointment." "Sasuke, I'll be training you. Meet at our training grounds tomorrow." Sasuke replied, "Sure, sensei." With an unreadable expression, Kakashi departed after saying, "You all have the rest of the day off. I'll see you later." Soon after, the others arrived and stayed long enough to attempt to reassure Naruto. Naruto sat silently in Hinata's room for the remainder of the day. Every time someone told him he had to leave, he simply shook his head. One particularly nasty nurse spat, but was silenced with a glare. "Look, brat, if you don't leave the hospital right now, she said. Then, with a soft expression on his face, she watched him take Hinata's hand in his and gently stroke it while turning his head back to the blue-haired girl in the bed. No one bothered him after that. A spare blanket was even brought in by one of the nurses so he could sleep in a different bed. Naruto fell asleep that night, hoping Hinata would be alright. He shook Naruto awake and said, "Hey, wake up, a male doctor." Naruto nearly yelled, "NGH. No. No," as he leapt to his feet, shocking the physician. In the hospital bed beside him, he noticed a sleeping Hinata who appeared to be at ease. The doctor saw his eyes and said, "Calm down, Naruto, she's okay for now. She has quite the will to live." Normally, someone with her injuries would have had trouble breathing sometime throughout the night, but there were no problems. At that, Naruto became even more at ease and turned to face the physician. "Thanks." He then had a clear view of the doctor's eyes and brown hair. "Dr. Akane Fubashi." "You recognized me," smirking, Akane said. Naruto shot back, grinning a little. "How couldn't I when you were one of the few who would treat me when I was in here?" Akane asked, "Point. Anyway, you have a visitor," grabbing his interest. "Who?" A man said, "That would be me," as he entered the room. He wore a red jacket over a battle GI that was slightly dark green with a mesh shirt underneath, along with jeans that were the same shade of green as the shirt and also had mesh underneath, and wooden ninja sandals. He had long white hair. The man carried a big scroll on his lower back and wore fingerless gloves and bracers on his arms. It featured a wart close to the left base of the man's nose, a horned headband with the kanji for oil on it, and red war paint in tiny, straight lines from the bottom of his eyes. "Who are you?" inquired Naruto. "I'm Jiraiya, the Toad Sage, kid," revealed the man. "Kakashi asked me to train you." Naruto said, "Okay. Let me get cleaned up and changed," and leapt from the bed. He said, "Would you mind leaving?" Jiraiya said, "Sure. I'll be at the hot springs when you're done," and then she vanished in a fog of leaves. Akane gave Naruto a look. "You know you're lucky to get training from the Toad-Sanin, right? He used some of the jutsu Kakashi taught him to clean up without showing himself as he said, "Kinda, yeah. I don't get why they get so much respect. Any ninja can reach their level if they put their mind to it." Akane corrected him, pulling the changing screen to allow Naruto to change. "Not any ninja," he said. "There are many ninja that have blocks, and have to compensate for them. They can't advance past those blocks." Naruto remarked, "Well, they can still get to their level in at least taijutsu," while he was changing. Before long, he walked around the screen dressed. He approached Hinata, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "Sweet dreams, princess." He then left the room, leaving Akane standing there in shock. The rumors are accurate, then. As he walked away, Akane thought, they're actually dating. In search of Jiraiya, Naruto strolled around the hot springs. "He told me to meet him here, but why?" "Probably for training in water walking," Takeshi replied via their link. They could still communicate telepathically because, despite having his own body, he was largely still imprisoned inside Naruto. People are usually motivated by the hot waters. All I can hope for is that he can actually assist with hyper mode. It was exhausting the first time. With a mental nod, Lael stated, that's what happens after you first enter it. To extend the amount of time you can stay in it, you must train. Naruto and his guests heard a man giggling in a perverse way at that moment. As Naruto rounded a corner, he noticed Jiraiya peering through a gap in the women's side of the hot springs fence. That pervert. Althea narrated. Everyone winced in their minds as she trailed off, muttering, oh, if I had a body. About what she would do to the Sannin. I'll grab him, Naruto pondered. Why the hell are you peeking on women in the hot springs, you perverted old man? He yelled loudly after taking a deep breath. Several kunoichi appeared and began beating Jiraiya, who screamed as the women struck him while Naruto and the others laughed. The women in the hot springs screamed. The women began to depart after a few minutes, and some of them expressed gratitude to Naruto for warning them about the pervert's presence. With a groan, Jiraiya rose to his feet, his face blue and black from the battering. As he healed his wounds with a healing jutsu, he questioned, why did you do that? You were peeking, deadpanned Naruto. Whatever, Jiraiya uttered, putting the issue aside. He took Naruto by the arm and disappeared, leaving Naruto behind. They resurfaced in a forest close to the village, where a river and a sizable waterfall were flowing. We'll be training here for the month. I know about your guests from the Hokage, so you can warp here every day, Jiraiya said, releasing Naruto. Naruto narrowed his eyes and questioned, okay, but why did he tell you? To make things easier. Now, what do you know about hyper mode? That a bearer can only first enter it if near a crystal reactor or when feeling extreme anger or rage, can be in it for 5 minutes when they first enter it, and are extremely exhausted after. Jiraiya gave a nod. Right, now, there are 2 kinds of hyper modes, basic and advanced. A basic hyper mode is one that a crystal bearer with only 1 power can enter. In other words, Lael's hyper mode is a basic type. An advanced hyper mode is one that activates 2 or more at the same time. You can enter it, since you have more than 1 bearer power. But there's a cost to entering an advanced hyper mode. The time you can be in it depends on how many hyper modes you can activate simultaneously. For example, if a bearer entered hyper mode using 2 of their powers, they can only stay in it for half the time of their basic one. If it's 3, the time is 1/3 of the basics. You keeping up? Naruto gave a nod. Sounds simple enough. How can a bearer increase the amount of time they can stay in it? That's the tough part. You have to fight either summons, like Bahamut or Rama, or someone stronger than you while in hyper mode. Since it's not a good idea to fight a summon alone right now, you'll be fighting me. I'll even teach you a few wind jutsu, as well as help with your chakra control. Sound good? Sure. Good. First though, you have to learn to enter hyper mode at will, and that's relatively simple. Just channel power into a crystal and let its power flow through you. Following instructions, Naruto was surrounded by light as the crystal in his cheek glowed brightly. After covering his eyes, Jiraiya looked to see Naruto in a basic hyper mode that was strikingly similar to Lael's. Jiraiya gave a nod. Training began as he charged at Naruto, saying, okay. Get ready. Let's see what you got. Time jump. After a week weary, Naruto collapsed in his bed. Jiraiya had, as promised, tested Naruto's limits all week long. Jiraiya and Lael said it was good progress that they had extended his hyper mode stay from 5 minutes to 35 minutes. He was going to visit Hinata in the hospital tomorrow since he had the day off. He yawned and fell asleep without realizing what was going on in the hospital. Silently, a cloaked figure moved through the corridors, vigilant and looking around for onlookers. It went into a room and saw a patient sleeping, but no one else. Hinata Hyuga was written on the clipboard at the foot of the bed, which it retrieved after approaching the bed. It read how well the doctors did, and it mentally sneered as it looked over the diagnosis. It put the board down and thought, if only the fabled slug princess were here. It turned to the patient and used a diagnostic jutsu to examine her. Identifying the cause of the issue, the figure used a healing jutsu and started treating the patient, observing as, if the light from the jutsu was any indication, color appeared to return to her face. The hospital's doctors and Anbu were alerted when the door opened a few seconds after the figure finished the jutsu and a nurse gasped before yelling for assistance. The figure, barely escaping the ANBU's attempt to capture it, swore and leapt over the bed and out the window. A few inebriated villagers were startled when it landed in the street and fled, determined to escape. As Anbu followed, it turned a corner. The Anbu came upon an empty street as they turned to follow. One attempted to negate any genjutsu that the figure might have employed, but it only disclosed that none had been employed. They dispersed, one of them returning to the hospital, radioing in the situation. When the Anbu entered Hinata's room through the open window, 3 Anbu and a number of doctors were present. When one of the Anbu noticed the newcomer, he said, "Well, what happened?" in a rough, masculine tone. The new Anbu responded in a feminine voice, "The intruder seems to have vanished," revealing purple hair that sank into her cloak as she threw back her hood. "What about the patient?" "That's the odd thing. We can't find any trace of a poison or venom. The only change is that Miss Hyuga's lungs and heart have been fully repaired, even though none of the doctors did any more than the surgery and 3 healing jutsu," a woman doctor replied, sounding completely perplexed. "Maybe that was the intruder's doing," a different physician dared to say. A third person questioned vehemently, "Then why would it hide? Perhaps it didn't want anyone to know who it was? How should I know?" The stern Anbu yelled, "Enough," as the second parted his lips. As the doctors departed, he turned to the purple-haired Anbu and said, "We can't rule that out, but we still need to report this. Go back to your duties. Cat, you stay here and protect Miss Hyuga along with Bear." Bear and Cat said, "Yes, Captain," and then disappeared as they hid. The sour Anbu told the other Anbu to, "Let's go," and they all disappeared in a flurry of foliage. As he read the report, Hiruzen let out a sigh. How did an intruder enter the hospital without being noticed and then use a jutsu to make Hinata appear to be healed? To the confusion of all those who knew, he was somewhat appreciative because that was the reality. In addition to monitoring the hospital, the Anbu searched for the intruder, but to no avail, as he had apparently disappeared. When he said aloud, "At least nothing bad happened," Orochimaru's fingers twitched as he glared at his spy. "Do you realize what you have done? You have only made it more difficult to execute my plans. I hope you understand what the consequences can be," he yelled at Kabuto. Kabuto's gaze expanded. He fell to his knees and cried out, "Please, no, I'm begging you, please don't. You had better not do anything else to harm the plan, or she will die, do you understand?" A hollow, "Yes, sir. I won't," was Kabuto's response. "Good," Orochimaru said with a malevolent grin, "now go." Kabuto hurried out, and Jegren came in. He questioned incredulously, "You're not worried that he could have leaked the plans?" "Impossible," argued Orochimaru. "He doesn't know much, but he can effectively kill himself and draw attention from himself if he gets too much of it. That is impressive, but I don't understand why he bothered to do such a thing. Perhaps loyalty, or compassion. It doesn't matter, I suppose. That entire village will be destroyed." Jegren admitted, "HMPH, I guess you're right. I want you to watch him so he does not try anything else. The rendezvous is in 2 days. Make sure no one knows of it or even hears the meeting as it takes place." Jegren said, "HMPH, like anyone will survive if they do," and walked away. Before disappearing as well, Orochimaru thought, "I will crush that village soon." Jiraiya dodged another boulder thrown by Naruto in hyper mode, taunting him, "Come on, Naruto. Your aim is better than that." Naruto lifted more boulders and threw them at Jiraiya, asking, "How's this then?" Jiraiya jumped over one after dodging as best he could, his eyes widening as 3 more swung at him so he had no time to duck. Though clever, that wasn't good enough. As he screamed, "Ninja art! Needle Jizo!" and flew through hand signals, his long white hair started to move and engulf him, with spikes of hair protruding in different places. When the boulders struck him, he flew back, the boulders sticking to him as he bounced and spun before landing on the ground. Then the rocks burst, exposing Jiraiya. "All right. Pretty good, kid, but you need to do better than that." They became quiet when they heard someone yelling, "Naruto-kun? Is that you?" Naruto's eyes glowed with delight and bewilderment. Due to an incident, the hospital had banned visitors for the day yesterday, so he was unable to visit Hinata, but he was happy to see her now. However, he couldn't understand how she knew his location. Wearing blue jeans and a purple t-shirt, Hinata walked into the clearing and gazed at Naruto in awe. With a swift exit from hyper mode, Naruto embraced Hinata, causing the girl to blush profusely. Naruto held her at arm's length instead of hugging her, asking, "Hinata-chan, what are you doing here? Shouldn't you still be in hospital? And how did you find me anyway?" Hinata grinned and said, "Lord Hokage informed me that you would be training in this area when I was released earlier today. Somehow, I'm fully recovered." Naruto appeared perplexed. "How? I tried visiting yesterday, but no visitors were allowed. The Anbu said something about an intruder during the night." Hinata said, "I don't know," with a small frown. At that moment, Jiraiya caught their attention by clearing his throat. "Well, I'm glad your girlfriend is better, but we should be training, Naruto. Hinata, you can stay if you want." Naruto began, but before he sagged and nearly fell onto Hinata, who caught him and became immediately concerned. "Naruto-kun? Are you okay? She said, placing him on the ground. Yeah. I'll be fine, gave Naruto's breathless response. Hyper mode is really draining. I'll be up again in a few minutes. In fact, Naruto was back on his feet and prepared to spar once more after a few minutes. But Jiraiya got an idea and held up his hands. Wait a second, Naruto. How about I teach you 2 more jutsu? With a bewildered expression, Naruto questioned, what jutsu? Jiraiya extended a hand and cupped it, allowing chakra to condense into a sphere and flow around the palm. It's called Rasengan, Naruto concluded, and Hinata followed suit, forming one. Jiraiya's jaw dropped to the floor. He was shocked and asked, who taught you that? Naruto clarified, I found a scroll written in my father's hand detailing it. Hinata. Chan and I mastered it around the same time. Jiraiya gave a headshake. That was a bit dangerous. Not everyone can use it. You two could have hurt yourselves. He smiled at them. Jiraiya went on after the 2 genin glanced down. However, I am proud that you mastered it so far. Both of them blushed slightly in shame. Thanks. Jiraiya began by biting his thumb and making hand gestures before slamming his hand to the ground. Well, I guess I don't have to worry about teaching you that. Now the other jutsu is. He said. He exclaimed, summoning jutsu. As a burst of smoke blocked the genin's view. After the smoke had subsided, Jiraiya was standing atop a big orange toad with a scroll in its mouth and wrist guards on its front legs. After giving Jiraiya a quick glance, the toad threw the scroll at him. So you want someone to sign the contract? It inquired. Jiraiya said, yeah, Gamma. It's Naruto, causing the toad to turn to face the genin. Gamma disappeared in a puff of smoke after saying, ah, I see. Well, if that's all, I'll see you later. With the scroll in his hands, Jiraiya landed on the ground, placed it on a level surface, and then unfolded it. Here, Naruto. Write your name in the first blank spot and then press the fingers of your writing hand below it, Jiraiya said. Examining the scroll, Naruto wrote his name on it with his thumb before dotting the rest of his fingers and putting it beneath his signature. Hinata pointed to the name to the left of her fianca copyright, S, and said, Naruto.kun. Look at who signed before you. After examining it and widening his eyes, Naruto grinned. The advertisement said, Minato Namikaze. After nodding and rolling up the scroll, Jiraiya said, I thought you might like that, and tossed it aside. Now. That evening. 0000 while eating dinner at their dining room table, Naruto and Hinata noticed a sudden sadness in Hinata's expression. Naruto looked at Hinata. Chan and said, what's wrong, Hinata? Chan. Hinata timidly questioned, Are you really going to kill Neji, Nissan? A small flash of anger appeared in Naruto's eyes, but he pushed it away. He put down his utensils and said, I honestly don't know. Please don't, said Hinata. He's family. He tried to kill you, declared Naruto. I can't easily forgive that. Hinata said, It's not his fault, and she shook her head. She gave Naruto a beseeching look and said, he wasn't always like this. Please don't kill him. Naruto gave Hinata a look. He let out a sigh. Alright, if it's that important to you. But what could have made him like that? Hinata calmly described how, nearly a decade ago, the ambassador of the hidden Cloud village had nearly kidnapped her, how her father had killed him, how Cloud had demanded his head, how Hizashi, his twin brother and Neji's father, had sacrificed himself in spite of Hiashi's objections, and how Neji believed his father had not made the decision he did. Naruto remarked, that's quite the story. He let out another sigh. Don't worry, I won't kill him. With a smile, Hinata planted a kiss on his forehead. Thank you, Naruto.kun. Naruto hugged her with one arm. It's alright, Hinata. Chan. Now come on. Let's get some sleep. Takeshi sent Naruto a loud telepathic message as they were climbing. Naruto, in a storage warehouse, I discovered some suspicious coffins. Come on over here. With a noticeable sigh, Naruto planted a kiss on Hinata. I'll be right back. Takeshi found something. Hinata cautioned Naruto, be careful, as he dashed out of the house and down the stairs. With a sigh, she went back downstairs and settled into a couch to wait for him. Without raising any red flags, Naruto sprinted as quickly as he could to Takeshi's claimed location. After arriving at the location, he felt Takeshi as the fox silently drew him into the shadows while shushing Naruto. What is it? Naruto inquired via their link. Takeshi said, him, as they turned the corner and saw Orochimaru conversing with Kabuto and the sound crew, minus Dosu. Kabuto followed Orochimaru as he abruptly punched Zaku and Kin, knocking them unconscious and dragging them into a warehouse. A red crystal in the shape of an arm grabbed Takeshi and Naruto as they cautiously approached the door to see what was going on, but they jumped back. A harsh voice said, "TCH, I missed," and he left. When Naruto saw the lil T, his eyes grew wide. "It seems we have some rats to deal with." "You. Jegren," Naruto uttered, his fists clenched. As he slid his weapon off his back and held it in his left hand, Jegren grinned and said, "You were right. It seems fate was nice enough to give me yet another chance. Of course," he added, "you won't live long enough to see me achieve my destiny." He lunged, swinging his weapon at Naruto with unexpected speed. As Takeshi struck Jegren in the stomach and kicked him back, Naruto ducked and leapt back, just missing having his head severed. To improve his fighting, Naruto leapt forward and transformed his gravity abilities into a sword, but a shadow clone of Takeshi pulled him back. "Naruto, no," Takeshi commanded. "Stop whatever that snake bastard is doing and find a way in." "How about you? This is just a medium body. I simply wind up in the seal once more if it dies, proceed." With a mental nod, Naruto leapt to his feet and began searching for a way out of the battle. Takeshi stepped in front of Jegren as he was about to run after Naruto, knocking him back. "Your fight's with me, bastard." Jegren prepared himself before lunging at Takeshi, saying, "Very well. I'll kill you first, then the brat, it doesn't matter." Later, Naruto stammered as he carried a girl with long black hair who was unconscious into his home. The girl had a sound headband on her forehead, a gray camo scarf around her neck, and a dark gray vest and gray camo shorts. "What happened?" Hinata asked Naruto as she got up and assisted him in setting the girl down on the couch after recognizing her face. "Kintsuchi?" "Yeah." Orochimaru locked her, Zaku, and another ninja inside some weird coffins and left with Kabuto. "I was able to get her out, but the coffins sank into the ground." "Where's Takeshi?" "His body got destroyed by Jegren," added Naruto. Hinata let out a gasp. "Yes, it was Jegren. Somehow he's alive again." Takeshi snarled, "Bastard was just lucky that I couldn't use too much chakra." "I understand," Naruto said. Hinata questioned, "Why did you bring her here?" "Orochimaru is planning something, she may know what. But why not turn her in?" Naruto gave a headshake. "Too suspicious, they may find out and change their plans." "But," Hinata attempted to counter, but she recognized Naruto's reasoning. "All right." Naruto gave Hinata a hug. "Come on, it looks like we're sleeping in here tonight." After gathering some futons, the two promptly dozed off, their hands clasped together while everyone else slept. Kin groaned as she opened her eyes to discover that she was in a person's home after feeling herself awaken. Gradually, she sat up after surveying the doors and furnishings. Her body protested against the action, causing her to wince, but she was able to sit up completely. It was noon when she glanced at a clock. She heard a door open abruptly, and 3 people entered the room. She recognized the 2 as being her age, and her eyes widened. A man with red spiky hair and red eyes with slitted pupils was talking to Naruto Uzumaki and Hinata Hyuga. Kin was sitting up when the man looked at him. He sat down in one of the chairs and said, "You're awake." "That's good," while Hinata and Naruto were seated on a couch adjacent to Kin's. Kin began, flinching from the man's stare. "Who?" "My name is Takeshi," said the individual, "and we have some questions for you. Namely about what Orochimaru and that lil T are doing. I know you just woke up, but time is not on our side." Kin paused. If she spoke, she would be branded a traitor. However, she detested her village and Orochimaru had pushed her into a coffin, leaving her to die. Without glancing at anyone, she uttered, I don't know much. But Orochimaru is planning to invade the Hidden Leaf village. That lil T is helping him for some reason. They seem to have made an alliance. They also recruited the Sand Village, but I think they are planning to betray them. Orochimaru is planning to pose as the Case Cage, and that lil T will be near him. That's all I know for sure. Takeshi's eyes searched Kin for any sign of dishonesty. He nodded a few seconds later. All right. Thank you. Naruto, let's go tell the Hokage. With a, all right, Naruto kissed Hinata's cheek and departed as Takeshi teleported them using the body flicker technique. After suppressing her blush, Hinata asked Kin, what do you want for lunch, Kin? With a kind smile. With a sigh, Hiruzen completed his paperwork. For the time being, Naruto's decision was communicated to the daimyo 2 weeks prior, and although he and Kere were somewhat let down, they both agreed with it. His thoughts were interrupted by a whirl of leaves, and Takeshi and Naruto emerged, both sporting solemn expressions. Hiruzen nodded and sent the Anbu away before turning on the security seals as Takeshi twitched and looked at the walls. What happened? Inquired Hiruzen, Takeshi said, Orochimaru, and then went on to describe what had happened the night before and what Kin had told them. Hiruzen fell back in his seat. I see. We need to prepare without them finding out. I can make bodies for Lael, Amidate Lion, and Althea with blood clones, Naruto replied. Hiruzen began, that would work, but Orochimaru will try to kill me, sigh. Takeshi stated, I need to settle things with him, with fiery eyes. Takeshi, if I had stopped him, you would still have Mirei and Genshi. It's my fault. No, Takeshi replied. You are not responsible for that. Orochimaru and Jegren are. But still, I am Hokage. If I do not fight, you don't have to. Just be in a place where you can best order your ninja. Hiruzen realized Takeshi's thoughts and asked, how would I get there? Takeshi raised his head. I have an idea. With his Sharingan fading and the jutsu in his hand dissipating, Sasuke gasped. Pretty good, Sasuke, said Kakashi, while surveying the 10-foot tall boulder on which Sasuke had been drills. 2 of the 3 holes that were bored into it were roughly 3 feet in diameter and went straight through. The third only went 1/3 of the way through it and was half as big as the other 2. You can use 2 at full power, and 1 at half. That's impressive for your age. Thanks, Sasuke sagged with fatigue. You're welcome, said Kakashi, grinning at his pupil. Take a break. You've earned it. With a swallowed food pill, the young boy said, no, not yet. Sasuke got up and started to run through hand signals, but Kakashi grabbed his hands and said, there's something I need to test. Rest first, Sasuke. You can test whatever jutsu you want later. But, Sasuke, that was not a suggestion. With a sigh, Sasuke took a seat next to a rock in the training area where he and Kakashi were training. Observing the sun, he took note of the time. Can I start in an hour? I suppose. We'll work on whatever that jutsu is for an hour. Sound good? Kakashi said after looking up. Sasuke gave a grunt, indicating that he was fine with that. Sensei? He asked after remaining silent for a few minutes. With his nose buried in his book, Kakashi asked, yes? There are some things I want to ask you about? Sasuke looked away from his sensei and said, the first is, girl problems, blushing a little. Realizing the gravity, Kakashi put his book down. Explain, please. With hesitation, Sasuke began, well. Kakashi nodded, you know I don't like fangirls. It was well known that Sakura and Ino were the 2 biggest of Sasuke's many fangirls. At first, I hated that I was put on our team, mainly because it had Sakura. But over time, as I got to know her better, I began to like how she treated me, even if I didn't realize it then. I don't know why, but I like seeing her happy, and I feel strange when she smiles at me. I don't like it when she's sad, either, but I don't know what to say to cheer her up. It's just confusing. Sasuke was wanting Kakashi to clarify. Kakashi gazed at Sasuke, allowing the boy's words to fully register. The boy beside him looked at Kakashi, who looked up with a sad expression on his face. That is a problem. Well, I can't tell you what to do, but I can help you figure it out, Sasuke. You know that my sensei was the 4th Hokage. My teammates were Obito Uchiha and Rin Narita. Rin had a huge crush on me, and Obito had a crush on her, similar to how this team was, before Naruto started dating Hinata. After the mission to destroy the Kanabi Bridge, we started dating. For a while, we were happy. I wanted Rin to be happy more than anything else. I hated when she was sad, and loved it when she smiled at me. I would have done anything for her. He turned to Sasuke. Compare the similarities between the situations, and you'll know what to do. Despite not understanding Kakashi's words, Sasuke nodded. What happened to her? Kakashi let out a sigh. Kakashi hung his head, disappointed that he was unable to save her. She died 3 years after the fox attacked. I had proposed a month earlier, but she and her team were killed while on a medical mission to a village. I'm sorry, claimed Sasuke. I shouldn't have asked. No. It's fine, explained Kakashi, with a headshake. What else did you want to ask? How did you get your Sharingan? Inquired Sasuke. Obito gave it to me as he was dying. My real eye had been destroyed, and he had Rin transplant his into my eye socket. He died during the mission to Kanabi Bridge. Following their exchange of information, the 2 remained silent, taking it all in. There's one more thing I want to ask, Sasuke finally said. What? How long have you known about Naruto's tenant? Kakashi gazed at his pupil in disbelief. It hadn't been whatever he was anticipating. When did you? After the forest. He told all of the rookies. Kakashi sagged. He paused before asking, do you hate him? I knew from the beginning about the fox. Sasuke shook his head, saying, No, how can I hate someone for something out of his control? I feel the same, mentioned Kakashi. Sakura sagged while resting beside a river in a training area. Over the past few weeks, she had learned a number of water jutsu techniques from her temporary sensei, Azumo Kamizuki. Azumo clarified that he was only a proctor for the first exam, which allayed her doubts about being instructed by one of the proctors. He then had her start training to control her element, first teaching her how to use her chakra alone to create a whirlpool in a river. He defined basic mastery as being able to hold a 4-foot deep, 3-foot diameter one for at least a minute. She was annoyed that she couldn't go further and was only able to complete half of that. Sitting beside her, Azumo questioned, "Trouble?" Sakura sputtered, "I can't hold the whirlpool any longer than 30 seconds, in distress." "I didn't expect you to master it in a month, Sakura," Azumo replied. "Reaching 30 seconds in 2 weeks is very impressive for your age." Surprised, Sakura turned to face her brown-haired sensei and asked, "Really?" Azumo said, "Of course," and nodded. "But, how come I can't control it any longer?" Azumo got a contemplative glance. "Well, you were rotating it to the right, but you could be a left rotation type." "Huh?" Sakura inquired, perplexed. Azumo clarified, "Chakra coils can spiral either left or right, and going against the spiral can be bad. You usually spend more chakra going against it than with it, because you fight against your coil's natural current. Try rotating it the other way." He gave her a food pill. Sakura dipped her hand into the river, took the food pill, and focused. After a few seconds, water started to swirl in the middle, creating a clear 3-foot diameter circle. Water was pushed down, creating a whirlpool, and soon the circle collapsed. Azumo kept a close eye on the water, setting a mental timer and noting when the whirlpool reached the desired size. Sakura started to strain from the effort, a few drops of perspiration trickling down her cheeks. She soon allowed the current to subside, breathing heavily. She leaned back against a tree and said, "How long was that?" Azumo said, 1 minute, 30 seconds, with admiration. He handed her another food pill, which she gratefully took, and said, "Let's end today's training here." "Okay," she said as she regained her strength. A few minutes later, she got to her feet. "Take tomorrow off," suggested Azumo. "We'll start another jutsu 3 days from now, alright?" "I'm not complaining, but why not the day after tomorrow? I have an appointment that day," Sakura said. "Oh, okay," oblivious to her new sensei's slight flush. Azumo said, "Alright, see you," and then disappeared in a whirl of leaves. Kin, Hinata, and Takeshi were standing a few yards away from Naruto as he stood in the backyard with his hands near his heart. Naruto remarked, "Okay, here it goes," as a purple disc materialized in his palms. The purple disc soon disappeared, and a light blue disc 10 feet in diameter emerged between the cracks, causing the air in front of him to crack. With a grunt of exhaustion, Naruto collapsed to his knees and called forth additional strength. He shouted, "Ha!" and threw his arms forward. The portal then broke in 3, one of which grew a foot while the others shrank, one to 8 feet and the other to 4 feet. Each portal exploded with a figure, their forms obscured until the portals vanished. Takeshi's human form was easily doubled in size by one of them. Its horns were dark brown, protruding from the sides of its head and then curving behind it. From its shoulders, short spikes protruded. Its hands were big and clawed, and its skin was light brown. It had a lingering sense of strength as muscles rippled along its body. Its backward bending legs ended in black hooves rather than feet. It also sprouted along the back of its forearms, and its hair appeared to be made of fire. It had a human-like nose, yellow eyes without pupils, and sharp teeth that were visible in an ever-present smile. It was dressed simply in dark brown shorts and had bracers on its wrists. The second was easily a woman, with a willowy figure, sky blue skin and waist length dark blue hair that was not as dark as Hinata's. She wore a tight, light purple mid-dot riff shirt and tight shorts that resembled swimwear, revealing her ass and maintaining her modesty while allowing plenty of skin. Several glittering snowflakes were scattered along her forearms. The third, which looked like a cat and reached Naruto's knees when he stood, was on all fours. Except for a white patch on its chest that extended to its navel, the majority of its fur was the same color as the woman's skin. Its eyes were black, and a ruby was set into its forehead. It had 3 feather-like flat tails as well. The first one took a look about. Observing the other summons, it said in a deep voice, "Who summoned us?" "I don't recognize that signature," Takeshi said. "Look at the blonde behind you, Ifrit," as he walked up to Naruto, who was panting and sweating from the effort. When the summons turned around, Takeshi was there. He turned to Naruto and said, "Takeshi, it's been a long time. He summoned us. He's just a child." Ifrit laughed scornfully. The woman pointed to the crystal in Naruto's cheek and said, "Ifrit, don't be so quick to dismiss him. He is a descendant of Lael." Ifrit's eyes scanned the crystal. HMPH. So he is. I suppose introductions are in order. I am Ifrit, Jinn of Fire. The woman said, "I am Shiva, Mistress of Ice," with a kind smile. "It's a pleasure to meet you." The cat excitedly said, "Hello, I'm Carbuncle," and began to bounce a little. Naruto identified himself as, "I'm Naruto Uzumaki Sol Alphateria," saying, "Hello, I'm Hinata Hyuga." Hinata bowed. I'm Kin tease. Suchi, Kin stumbled, unable to speak straight. Ifrit paused as he felt something, then said, "May I ask how you summoned us?" "No, wait. I sense Amidate Lion's power. But how can that be?" Naruto drew blood from his arm and allowed it to pool before he ran through hand signals. "I'll show you," he said. Naruto exclaimed, "Blood clone jutsu," and 3 clones started to form out of his blood. "Soul release jutsu," Naruto exclaimed as he started a second set halfway through. 3 orbs of various colors flew into the clones and started changing them. Amidate Lion, Lael, and Althea stood before the summons as a faint glow enveloped their forms. After a few moments of staring, Ifrit burst out laughing. "Ha ha ha, I see, boy. I can assume you taught him those, Takeshi?" "I did," said Takeshi. Kin exclaimed, "W. Wait a second," as her eyes widened and her thoughts adjusted to what she was witnessing. She gestured toward Naruto. She pointed to the people she was referring to and said their names. "You're Lael's last living descendant, and you brought him, Lady Althea, and Amidate Lion back to life. And that's why you can summon them?" Naruto said, "Sort of. It's hard to explain, Kin," but he did his best to explain, omitting the connection between him and Takeshi. Ifrit chuckled. "I see. It must be a sign of the crystal's will. In any case, it is good to see you again, Lael." "According to Lael, I can say the same." Shiva inquired, "Takeshi, where is Mirai?" After observing that the fox's lover was not present. Takeshi's expression dimmed. She's no longer with us." The faces of summons also fell. Shiva said, "I'm so sorry," with tears on the verge of spilling. Carbuncle drooped his tails and said, "How? You are the strongest of the Biju," and she was no pushover herself. Despite the atmosphere, Kin coughed in surprise. She dropped what she was about to say when Naruto gave her a look that implied he would explain later. "She and my kid were killed by Jegren and a man named Orochimaru," Takeshi stated. After a brief moment of stunned silence, Ifrit roared in rage, "What? How is Jegren alive again?" According to Takeshi, "I don't know. Probably Orochimaru's doing, and that's partly why you were summoned." "Which is?" Takeshi's eyes hardened as she gazed at them. "We need your help. Fast. Forward to the finals day." Behind a Jonin with shoulder-length brown hair and brown eyes, dressed in the rank appropriate uniform with his headband wrapped like a bandana, stood the Chunin exam finalists, minus Sasuke, in the middle of a sizable stadium. In addition, he was holding a senbon in his mouth. He addressed the genin behind him, saying, "Stand tall, you lot. Today, this is your show." Before stepping up to speak to the entire stadium, there were several lords and nobles from many nations present, along with about half of the village. The leader of the Hidden Sand Village, the Cage, was present as well. After grabbing everyone's attention, he spoke briefly to the assembly. "Now, let us begin the first match. Naruto Uzumaki vs Neji Hyuga. All the remaining participants, please leave for the waiting area." He turned to the remaining genin after the participants had left. Neither Neji nor Naruto broke the glare they were giving each other as they nodded in response to the question, "Are both of you ready?" Hiyashi talked to his youngest daughter up in the stands. "Watch carefully, Hanabi. Neji has the strongest Byakugan in generations, and Naruto is heir to the oldest bloodline in existence." "Yes, father." Genma spoke louder. "The first match will be Neji Hyuga vs Naruto," he said, glancing at the second genin. Although he was aware of his orders, he preferred to first obtain Naruto's approval. Naruto gave a nod. "Proctor, go ahead and say it. They're bound to know." Genma grinned. Neji Hyuga vs Naruto Uzumaki. Namikaze Sol Alphateria. There was a commotion right after Genma's announcement, primarily from the general public. Naruto responded by taking off his jacket and throwing it aside, exposing both the crystal on his chest that was visible through his low dot-cut shirt and the one in his cheek. Genma yelled, "Let the first match begin," and then leapt back.
That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this great story. See you in the next one.